Srimad Bhagavatam. We've been speaking a bit about the Gita, and for those of you that are not familiar, Srimad Bhagavatam, it's pretty simple. Undergraduate, graduate. So Bhagavatam is graduate study. Same principles that you learn in undergraduate school as in graduate school, but it's a little bit more detail and refined. And Vyasadeva is the author, and one of the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam is this fellow here, Vishwamitra Muni. Once upon a time, Vishwamitra Muni had this disagreement with the Brahmana. Vishwamitra Muni was the king, and greater than the king is the Brahmana. And it was just a detail. The Brahmana had a special cow, a wish-fulfilling cow that can produce anything. So the king wanted the cow. And he asked the charity from the Brahmana. The Brahmana said, no, we're inseparable. So the king decided he's just going to take the cow. He had a problem. So then he realized the power of the Brahmana was greater than the power of charities, maybe to take over the kingdom of heaven. So he sent this lady, her name was Menaka, to seduce Vishwamitra Muni. It worked. Raw brute force, self-control is insufficient. Mindfulness without an invested heart has limitations, which is true. The heart needs to be invested and transformed by finding real shelter, capital R, capital S. That's from the Bhagavatam, and other places also. It's from Ramayana, those of you that know a little bit about Ramayana. So one may try for mindfulness, but it doesn't endure. I gave that personal example several times of practicing zazen and realizing from practicing zazen, while it's powerful, mindfulness was accomplished, but shortly after that meditation and discipline, the previous clutter of the mind resumed quickly. So things fall apart without proper shelter. We spoke a little bit already about false ego, our dear friend, and how the subtle is the support of the less subtle, less subtle, less subtle, everything stacked up upon the most subtle of the material elements is false ego. And the false ego is protected by the mind. The covering protects the more subtle. This is from Bhagavad Gita. There's no peace for those who see themselves at the center of existence as enjoyers of this world. But seeing oneself as the enjoyer from Bhagavad Gita, that notion, that anticipation of happiness through senses contacting object of the senses in this world, that's happiness, that's bondage. And false ego keeps it going. So here's some persons that, this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. You don't have to read Srimad Bhagavatam if you want. You can read Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a very nice literature. Just a little sharing. This morning, from 7:30 to 9:15, I was with a group of devotees from China in a Zoom call. It was fun. We're going through the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, little by little, chewable bites by chewable bites. We covered 4 chapters of Canto 7 out of 12. It's really nice. in Canto 11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the story of a Avanti Brahmana. And the Avanti Brahmana had some false ego issues. And it created some problem for him. And he had trying hard to detach himself. He found the more he tried hard to detach himself, the more his mind was filled with struggles for money. And struggles for money makes one greedy. And greed destroys everything. You know, he wanted money, but he also wanted respectability. And he lost his respectability. Persons that are chasing after money as, you know, the thing that's going to make me happy, get some money. And his praiseworthy qualities were taken away. In the earning, attainment, and increase, protection, expense, loss, enjoyment, wealth, all men experience great fear, anxiety, and delusion. So this Avanti Brahmana story is narrated by Krishna to help explain the perils of the artificial attempt to become elevated and then go the other direction, the artificial attempt to find enjoyment. So the vacillation between renunciation and enjoyment, renunciation and enjoyment is problematic. Theft, so there's consequences. Theft, violence, speaking lies, duplicity, lust, anger, all bad qualities result from greed for wealth. Even a man's brother, wife, parents, and friends united with him in love will immediately break off their affectionate relationship, become enemies, even to the point of murder, over a single coin. Anyway, it's illustrating when one becomes obsessed with enjoyment, and in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, having the means of having some wealth, having success in that part of life, spells enjoyment. And it's one of those things that, you know, you get a little bit, a little bit's not enough, and you gotta have a little more, and have a little more, and, you know, it just escalates, the snowball avalanche effect. And good qualities, and it just happens, good qualities diminish. So there's the melted mind. How do you maintain this position of gratitude and determination in the midst of the perplexities of life? That was one of the questions that came up in the Meet the Monk session. You know, other topics. The world that we live in has day and night. It has happy and sad, it has honor, dishonor, it has pleasure, pain, it has duality. And one part of the duality is this misery. So how do you maintain steady as she goes in the midst of the misery? And it has everything to do with the as the topic, mindfulness and steroids. When you actually have shelter, and the wind is blowing you away from your destination, you stay steady as she goes, because you have a destination, you have a place of shelter where you're headed. The grace of providence, the grace of the Supreme. So this is the Avanti Brahmana is lamenting. He brought me to this suffering condition and forced me to experience detachment. If there's any time remaining in my life, I will persist on the bare necessities and pursue my genuine self-interest. I shall remain satisfied within the self. The Bhakti Brahmana got distracted and got lost. But when he was down and out, and it was not getting any better, it was clear it wasn't going to get better, he let go of that miserly pursuit and instead became very interested in spiritual life. Now supposing one doesn't take interest in spiritual life, and then, circumstances of life, others may see this person is weak or whatever they may see, and they take advantage of that person. Sharp arrows which pierce one's chest and reach the heart do not cause as much suffering as the arrows of harsh, insulting words become lodged within the heart when spoken by uncivilized persons. Bhakti Brahmana was in this painful condition. So now that's very quick, super quick. This description in the Bhagavatam takes many chapters. You go through slow motion detail of being rightly situated and getting distracted. And when one's distracted, becoming obsessed with the distraction and so forth. But so it's just that Krishna's narrating the story because it happens in life. Maybe not to that degree as that particular Avanti Brahmana, but it happens. Where things are moving along, and then suddenly there's a turn, and suddenly the turn becomes a curve, and the curve becomes, you fall off the cliff. So, discussion. This is our favorite activity here. Without all the details, because I didn't go into all the details, have you been in something similar? How would your mind want to react? What would you end up doing? Perplexity. Questions? And if you have no questions, you just proceed and have your little discussion groups. Okay, proceed.
I have found myself proceeding in different ways. So I can speak to historically in similar situations. You get lost, you get frustrated, you cave to your lesser nature, your lower natures, and you lash out. I've said hurtful things that I wish I could take back. I've sometimes failed to see the bigger picture. More recently, well, I think I've always been semi-self-reflective, so I can feel the things that I've said in the past, I feel regret. And having started on this path fairly recently, I found myself. So specifically, I'm referring to the relationship that I have with my kids. I'm understanding that to the point of I've been put in this situation 2 times with my and one of the things that I always sort of struggle with is boundaries. And so if someone, I can tolerate a verbal lashing, but eventually I strike back. I cannot get you in this state. But it takes a lot to tame the, as you're in the moment, it takes a lot to tame like I relate it to be about phenomena. I mean, to one other's point, it spans several chapters. But if I were in his situation, I mean, you see the gradual transformation, right? Like at first, he's left destitute. No one is helping him. And sure, you feel despair, you feel anger, you feel the rejection, you feel regret, all the things, and it's hard not to get lost in those emotions. But I've been trying to take a step back and be who I actually am, which is the passive observer of all the emotions and all the thoughts and all the time. And try to take a learning from the experience I did. Set boundaries that protected myself and my heart. I don't know if that helps or
In the end, it's not much better what you want to say everything else. They try to just like the one thing that works so hard. He's trying to find a situation like one reason it's like a mindfulness without her. We try to that I haven't remembered anything from here. I'll just go here, a lot of times. I'll find myself. I like this person. Sometimes, especially I'll see myself where if I'm in a situation where it's a word or it's whatever, that like a knee-jerk reaction, so I'll find myself using like, and though I'm not the type of person that's she's out, I'll have fun. And we do it. I didn't know how to do this. I don't know how would I do this. This is for me to really kind of bring it in. Like, how do you get to that point where you're just always saying or just trying to do at least a lot of practice? That's what
and I think for most of my life, I learned to repress my anger because I saw it as a bad thing. But to the point of this, anger isn't necessarily bad. It's just the other side of the same coin of happiness. And so through experiencing anger, one, it's
And the anxiety.
but two, it's also telling you something. There's a boundary that is being crossed. There's something that is hurting you. And if you pause and listen to
I
it
feel the same way
and
about
react
marriage.
or
I'm like,
respond rather
everybody
than
is
react,
behind my back,
pause, you
get
analyze
married,
it.
get married.
And two,
And then I know what
it's
you
not
do
about
from others, like,
communication. What is
so
it
much
that?
work.
Like I said, movie.
So many things. 4 out of 5. Yeah. I see my friends.
Oh my God, what's the name of these
What?
sites?
What is triggering?
Rocket the way to.
I've been hurt. I feel like this person is
My friends, I
rejecting
see
me.
them, they're really happy.
Doing something
They go
wrong.
to travel on trips like a couple. They share responsibility.
And actually
like
sitting
for
on
me,
the
my tab stops working. I have no idea. I have to go
That's
to YouTube
insane.
how to fix my tab or how to fix my which usually conventionally I have never been taught.
Practice, practice, practice. We're trained as children that if you practice your spelling, if you practice your multiplication table, practice that Facebook.
Yeah.
You're not taught to practice this.
You gotta just not let everybody else tell you.
I think it's that thing of like maybe
Yours
stress.
is
That was yourself.
Necessarily expected from
Also a
someone.
little meditation.
It's one of those things that's unbelievable. In that situation,
You don't have to do
I
that.
always say make mistakes, we don't get
I
All I ask
feel
is
like
Give yourself
I overall feel like it's a good thing to do, but then with the right person.
because I believe
That is the important, and that's so hard.
knowledge gives him the
It's not.
Prabhupada,
That's
everybody.
true. So the right person for you, right?
Well, we gotta be right.
Yes.
You're not,
Beautiful
you're
photo.
not.
Beautiful.
What the sign that there's even discussion. There's some persons looking up.
Be happy with yourself.
The person's looking up means their discussion is finished. Some of your discussion isn't finished, but we're asking you to interrupt. And we're gonna move on. Is that okay?
I love that.
Huh?
It's awesome.
Oh. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So here's an interesting prayer. Lord, please give me patience, because if you give me strength, I'll need bail money too.
That's good.
Wow.
So probably no one responded this way. The topic is disturbance that is created in the mind. And sometimes when our mind is disturbed, we place the blame on something other than our mind. My peaceful place is where my enemies burn. But the cartoon is not just the enemies burn, but the person burns. It is the mind alone that causes happiness and distress and perpetuates the rotation of material life. Without mindfulness, we discussed this, without mindfulness is turbulence and distraction and is endless. And on and on and on. Not only this lifetime, but multiple lifetimes, and it continues. Somebody was asking a question yesterday in our Meet Among session. They wanted to know, what's your relationship like with your siblings? Because I had said, that, how did I get here? I was the youngest of 5 children. So what about your other siblings? What's your relationship like with them been like since you became a Hare Krishna monk? So I shared with them, there's a little discussion with one sister recently, and she's having a hard time. She's 83 years old, and she can barely walk, and the body's falling apart. She doesn't know how long it's going to take her to fall apart. And other things are happening, and one of her questions was, what do your teachings say about where does the soul go after this life? And I said, it's really simple. According to Bhagavad Gita, whatever the mind is fixed on at the time of death, the mind, the gross body is finished, the subtle body continues, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. The subtle body carries the soul to the next gross body, but mom and dad, and take birth in the next, whatever, not just necessarily human, but whatever the next birth is. Depends on what the mind is. And where the mind is depends on what you did throughout your life and in previous lives. So it's a summation, and you draw the line, and you do the tabulation, and that's where the mind is. That's going to carry you. The subtle carries the soul to the next body. So, birth after birth, if there's no mindfulness, not only you're in the sea, Chittavik, remember from yesterday? The waves, the turbulence of the mind, and it can subside. Yoga is to have it subside. Supposing you don't do that, then it's the turbulence program. In the turbulence program, happiness and distress, sometimes up, sometimes down, sometimes moving this way, that way. And life after life after life. Reincarnation happens because of the mind, happiness and distress. In this life, happens because of the mind. Supposing the mind is clear and it's cold out, you feel cold. but you don't identify with the cold and you can tolerate it because it's temporary and you get on with what you're supposed to be doing. And suppose you don't have a clear idea of who you are and what you're supposed to be doing, then it's all about what the mind feels. We are held hostage by our own minds. Our attachments make us go wild, including killing another. The mind is stronger than the strongest, and his godlike power is fearsome. I was recently making a presentation at a university where there was a part of the presentation was a TED Talk, the video of a TED Talk, and the lady that was the speaker was a graduate at UCLA, and she was describing what going mad was like at UCLA. It's not the place, it was her mind. And she had no control and became obsessive. And she realized later by diagnosis obsessive compulsive disorder, and she was ready to commit suicide because not to kill somebody, but to end her life because she was going mad and she couldn't bear it. But it's the mind, it's not the circumstance. She went back, walked it backwards, and it all started with pain in her shoulder. And then she didn't go to a doctor because she wasn't being reasonable. Later she went to a doctor and she found it was just a strained muscle. But it was leading her to the point of suicide. Because she was imagining the worst and so on and so on and so on. So our experience in the mind is not necessarily a match with reality, even the temporary reality, so to speak of spiritual reality. So the mind, the mind takes us for a ride without mindfulness. The mind causes our suffering. Other people are not the cause of our pleasure or grief. Although we look outside, the body, the stimulus for the body is stuff. If something causes the stuff, and that's my happiness or distress. But it's mind. We tend to believe that which we think and feel is true. But it's not. That was your comment yesterday. Maya, you've heard this term a few times maybe while being here. Maya is a Sanskrit word. Ma means not, and ya means this. Maya means accepting illusion to be reality, and reality to be illusion. And there's a world of Maya. As opposed to understanding what's what, or reality is reality and illusion is illusion. We get it mixed up. And it's a potency, it's the deluding potency that comes from the source of everything. So back to the Avanti Brahman story, some of you came a little later. We were making reference really quick from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, to a story that Krishna is narrating to his dear friend and devotee, Uddhava, about suffering caused by the mind, and he tells the story of once upon a time. All good stories begin with once upon a time. There was a Brahmana, long, long ago, Brahmana had a wonderful situation, but he started having a problem. The problem escalated and snowballed and became bigger than reality. And he came to the place where he realized the problem was his mind. He found a place within himself where his happiness could not be disturbed by anything external. He realized that so many of our dealings relate to dividing the world into friends and enemies, or attraction, repulsion. I like it, I don't like it. I want some more, I want less, get rid of this thing. But they relate only to the mind. That was, he became fixed in Brahman. Brahman means truth, or reality. When he wasn't fixed in truth, he was fixed in illusion. He found a shelter other than his own mind in which he verse on the right. It's a celebrated verse. I shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of darkness, hostage of to the mind, by being firmly fixed in humble, loving service to the Supreme Soul. Many great persons before me have done this and strongly encourage it. So this is, he's in a bubble. He's protected from, the oppressiveness that may be outside or perceived as oppressive, because it may or may not be oppressive. And how does that protective bubble or protection from harassment or the external affecting the internal? By having the internal place of shelter. And the internal place of shelter is the Supreme. That's yoga. No surprise. So can we find shelter in the mind? We saw this image before. If there isn't a place of shelter, if it's just the mind and trying to orient the mind to, feeling good or something, it's flaky. It disintegrates quickly. But there is such a place as shelter. We cannot move any other person to line up with our desires. You can try. We cannot send all those people behave to disagree to distant lands. We cannot protect ourselves from separation from people we love. And even if we could do all these things, the mind, by its very nature, would still not be satisfied. Shoot. What to do? This mindfulness, the mind directed towards a place of real shelter. What's that real place of real shelter? Let's do some other kind of mindfulness. Something I didn't share during this Meet the Monk session, but when I learned about meditation and found that it is a practice that leads to peaceful contentment, at least for some stretch of time. There are many, 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 many different techniques for meditation. One of them is a candle. Sit in a place, and you're in a quiet room, and then there's a candle, and if the wind is blowing, the candle flickers, but the wind stops. The candle is steady, and the mind becomes steady by meditation on a steady candle flame. I'm pausing because I'm thinking of an experience I had some years ago. I was invited to Harvard University Religious Studies Department, and somebody in the Religious Studies Department had made a video of different types of spirituality, different organizations and groups and, dispositions and teachings. And then we were supposed to there were different speakers. Islamic speaker was a professor at the university, and a Christian fellow who was Harvey Cox was present, a Christian speaker, and they couldn't find a good Hindu, so I was the Hindu guy. And we're supposed to make a review of the film. I remember the experience reasonably well. So when it came my turn, I said the most outstanding part of this film for me was sound. And the particular event was, there was this Buddhist monk, and you could hear the splash as he was canoeing a little canoe across a lake. He got to the edge of the lake, pulled up his canoe onto the shore of the lake, pulled from the canoe this gong, and sat on the side of the lake and hit the gong. I said, that was really powerful. It was just fixing on the sound. But then after some time, the sound goes, and then you have to hit it again. So, sound is a very powerful tool. Spiritual sound is a more powerful tool than material sound, than a gong or anything else material. Sound is powerful. Sound can break a wall. Sound can shatter glass. Sound can move matter. And spiritual sound can transform matter into spirit, or spiritual, having a spiritual dimension to it, or feel to it, or impact upon your consciousness just through sound. The body and the mind can be fully spiritualized by spiritual sound. That's the principle of mantra meditation. We spoke a little bit about it. And while all these things might not happen, but if there's actual shelter, then you can stay fixed when there's actual shelter. This is almost the last slide. It's the next to the last slide. So we're going to do our favorite activity again. You know, a little discussion groups, and here's the topics. We had a 3-part workshop. I assume most of you were here for the first 2, now you're here for the third. Reflections. And second, what has shelter been for you? How has it served? There's material, there may be some spiritual shelters. How can you access real shelter? Moment to moment. Okay, breakout session. And we have, you know, we have about half an hour. So it'll take 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes. And then someone from your group can make a report to the rest of us. How do you go?
It's very.
I have copies, it's just not with me right now.
The whole sentiment, because for me it was my family. Then through family I got money. Through that money I got education. Through that education I got career. Through the career which I feel like sometimes it's a flow and say. It's very connected, but the root is family, because my family was not very supportive of my education and like didn't do my upbringing in a appropriate manner. I would not have achieved any of it. Yeah, and if I close my eyes and I think about one person I can trust in my whole life, it always comes up to like my parents. Because I feel like even though they're always angry on me or whatever, but it's like coming from pure love.
Yeah.
Try to pause that.
Will you able to pause it?
I don't know how to.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can count on me.
Suicide.
That's another thing. I can do anything. That's not true. What are your reflections?
Yeah, this is the second part, so cigarette, so anything I did, you know, already doing it, you know, this mindfulness stuff and then get your emotions out, it's nice to have it presented and reminded. Don't, right? It's a different meal, exactly.
having this type of workshop, appreciation, again and again. It's not like, it's like that waiting. It's like slowly modifying us. And then one fine day, we are the person we are the person in Nagari. And then I feel like there will be one day to just take. Everybody will be like, this is it. That also happens. For some people, it can be more gradual. And I've seen both scenarios. Right? It's like, maybe for somebody like me, I feel like things have clicked for me. It's like I am more like a work and interruption kind of person. It's like, slowly. It builds up. Right?
There's a reaction
I
coming.
don't want to be wild, good.
Then it's like after there's no goal. Yeah. It's like this.
Yeah, that's kind of what you're talking about.
So there was an option
Once you know, once you come in contact with something, you see something.
They cannot unsee it.
blank page is how I answer his question.
And you say like, no, it's not over. I literally read certain books. This is what lies in there. It's not.
I literally wrote down this, that's crazy, because I literally wrote down here today, while we were sitting in the session, I just realized I moved away from spirituality because we're operating more on being too afraid to ask questions.
Well, because it's really,
That's what I'm saying.
something else
You just,
from
even though I'm living it, the life doesn't as a man. That's a classic. It's all it's still number one. It's 100 years old. But if you look at the main one, you'll see it still shows the like categories like number one. As a man, as a man, it's been retitled, but the main book is as a man. So you get thinking, because that's like how they used to speak once upon a time. That book is from 1907. Listen to it. I was playing it for someone. Yeah. I was playing it for her.
because humanity hasn't changed. Like technology, how we sort of
You're the best
consume
technology.
media has changed. But the human brains.
It's still the same fundamental.
Yeah.
What you think about that kind of thing? If you keep saying I'm great, I'm good, you believe it. Everything. I'm not saying I'm great, but that's how.
What word you use?
Great.
Oh, great.
If you keep saying I'm great, you're gonna be great. That means.
No, I use that same sort of technique. I keep a gratitude journal. And a lot of times I will write down that I'm grateful for things that haven't even happened yet. I'm so grateful for them.
Wow.
That's how it works.
Keep putting it out. I'm just so thankful.
That's how you're doing
This
it.
thing makes my life, whether I have it yet or not.
I've been keeping journal for years and that's stuff.
Yeah, it does help.
And that puts
Just
the
be
word
grateful for the
today.
little
I
things.
say I am. Once you learn it, it's not about I want. I say I am. And everything I said I am, and all the things, like I said, but I'm very humble, so I say certain things here. See, 3 times in the time. But I'm just not. Because it's not about showing. It's about showing. Showing like showing. So the more I learn, it says it in my book. The more I learn about how much. I mean, the more my success is.
All that stuff. If I'm answering questions,
Keep giving stuff. Just being involved. It's all stuff.
You just said you did everything for your spirit, and you're ready for others.
Because I can't, because it's the same thing. It's full.
You
We
only
are
feel
all
like,
connected.
oh wow, so you feel like by serving to others, you're actually serving your own life.
No, I don't have this. I'm doing living. I don't have anyone.
But do you have the desire to serve others?
I know it's right. I know it's what's supposed to be done. So I just do it. Like I'm being, we're human beings, I'm being a person to serve. But I have no desire. I have no desire for money. less you do, the more you get. Everything's coming to me like amazing amounts.
How can I access real shelter moments of my
So I share that, it's like, I share it because if you live that, you'll see, like, I say, please pray for me, please care, please love everyone, please take care of yourself, please, and I thank my staff for that, people like laugh, and say, what's on that? Yeah, that's what you.
I think that's what it is, that's the finding shelter in the wrong things.
Yeah, exactly. People find shelter and, oh, fancy car. I don't buy that stuff because I can get all that. I'm gonna get something just for the people. Hey, look at this fancy car. Who wants it? Because people will think that's that's the boxes. Like I said, you come in the world fine, and you're in the fine. You're fine. You put in the body fine. Why you think you're wrong? If that's the case, that would have come out of your nose. A car, a TV. I said it like a joke, like, if that's what you needed, it would have come out of your
As a mom, it's terrible.
and that would have been good. What's that?
That's a mom. It's terrible.
But to make it sound, so I put things in.
No, I know what you mean.
That people go.
I was watching this documentary about people who live outside and all this. They have nothing, they have no phones, they have no electricity.
Which means they have
No
everything.
TV, and they're so happy.
So happy.
Did you always have
I
that?
see, there is like this 1-year-old boy, and he's riding like big yachts and all those.
But remember,
And he's fearless.
Yeah.
And he's
remember,
at almost minus 70 degrees Celsius.
that all of that stuff always
Not
exists
scared at all.
in history. What did people, so you're telling me before we had phones, everyone was unhappy? Before we had TVs, everyone
I
was
think my
miserable? Before we had
grandparents were
cars,
much more
everyone was
happy than I was.
before there was a Harvard University, everyone was
They
stupid?
had so much time, they could take a 1 hour nap.
So coming back to that,
Yes.
what's the third one? What is your,
I think my real shelter is ISKCON, Hare Krishna movement. That's where I tap into from time to time. And people like to association from like-minded people. I feel like we can learn something from them.
You can't, you just gotta do it.
I think mine comes back to gratitude. That's what's always helped me. Just being thankful. Like I think we were talking about like thankful for my hands.
That's
And my
it.
hands
Say
work.
that, say thank you.
Like little things like that. You just find the gratitude in those times. Like my body works. I'm so thankful for that.
Like this was like, this took millions of things. Millions, maybe more, just to
what is it saying? I know you're an artist. So,
he's drawing us right now.
It's a beautiful thing.
We don't want to use words, but just art.
The word can
You think in pictures, though. When you think, you actually think about pictures. You don't think in words. So it's art.
What shelter is it?
No, when the word comes up, you think of the word of it.
Me personally, I think of pictures, but other people.
There are,
I don't know if
There are people that
it
think in words.
see words, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are people that don't have a song stuck in their head all day.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Everyone's brain, like when I first heard that, people don't walk around with songs stuck in their head all day.
I have songs something.
Constantly.
Constantly. Like
All the
this
time.
2 3 days retreat, I hear the song in morning, full day I'm singing Tulsi Aarti. Which is like the first thing we do in the morning. I don't even realize.
No, don't even realize it. Sometimes it'd be a song I haven't heard in years. Like, where did that even come from? But here I am, grooving to it all day. So I've always got a groove on. But it's happening.
Mine's popular, but I'm thinking, but also like, I'm not.
Yeah.
Always crafting, but that's how,
delicious, correct?
my purpose is to try to
My shot is, anything that's going on, rapidly,
to do all the rounds of the classes. Bring you right back to where you were before anything happened. Another person, a partner.
I also feel like you remind me of something like, so everybody's so different, you know, different things work for different people. I feel like I have a friend who loves to clean dishes, so that's like meditation for him. If you feel stressed out or anything, he just starts cleaning the dishes.
Can you call him?
He comes to my house anytime.
We need,
Especially here.
we need the kitchen.
He could really zone out here.
I bet.
Maybe in like paradise. Stuff on plenty to wash.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, I have tried not to sit still and meditate. It's challenging for me. Like, I can do maybe 10, 15 minutes, but not more than that. So what I do is, I personally like to organize things a lot. So when I just start organizing my cupboards, my closet and everything. And then the work gets done. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Only when it's just
I have a portable mic.
Yes.
We're ready for sharing. I'm ready for sharing. We'll take a couple volunteers, and then we'll take questions and answers, and then we'll call it a day. From your groups, anybody want to be a volunteer to share the discussion of your group? Not everybody all at once, please.
I do want to share
Okay.
that what is right on the board is what Nilesh said.
Yeah.
So he said that is his shelter, mantra meditation.
Very good.
Yeah, he picks up the japa beads and that's it. I'll let him speak.
She said it.
Already said it. You never know.
No, when I first came to this retreat, there was no control. You talk about this mind experience, my mind was, a monkey was going crazy, all over the place. And when we did the japa, the 108 rounds was, seemed impossible. I mean, it just was beyond.
108 rounds or 108 beads?
108 beats, sorry, yeah. It seemed impossible for me. And then slowly, you know, when we did it here, we practiced for 3 days, and I took it home, and I just didn't give up on it for some reason. I don't know. There was an attraction. And I kept doing it, and I got to 1 round, I got to 4 rounds, got to 8 rounds, and then Kartik, somebody said to me, if you do it in Kartik, whatever you do, it's gonna multiply. And so I said, if I can do 8 rounds, I'm gonna try for 16. And I started doing 16 rounds, and once I got to 16, my mind, my abilities, and the know-how of saying, yeah, I can do 16, and I wouldn't say I do 16 all the time, but I do it majority of the time. And it's, this is why, it centers me. So it's been a blessing in disguise.
Not in disguise.
Well,
Got a lot of advertising.
Over 16.
Okay. Our groups in the back, there's 2 different groups. Anybody from the back want to share, or you want to be? Very good. Thank you.
We ended up talking a lot about how you gotta take the time to focus on your own connection to Supreme Soul or Supreme Power, wherever you draw that. Those other shelters are not as strong without that. So what I learned here about mantra meditation feels like a great way to keep that up. But the how, that's kind of where we also still have, some questions. This is one way, the only way?
Standard way.
That's a good way, it's an effective way, I appreciate that, yeah.
Okay. Anybody would like to raise a question or cover a topic or explore something? Over in front here.
have no question. Get ready. This is gonna be fun. So, here's the question, and I'll give you my answer. What happens at the end of reincarnations?
At the end of incarnation. You want to know? That's your question.
I would like to hear your answer. That's my question is.
Okay.
That's what happens. You're waiting.
Here's some Sanskrit. Muktir Nirvanita Rupam Swarupena Vyavasati, that's what happens. So we'll just do the last part first. Swa Rupa. Swa means one's own. Rupa means form. One becomes Vyavasati. Sthiti means to be situated. One becomes situated in one's spiritual form. Swarupena Vyavasati. And one engages eternally because the spiritual form is not the temporary one, it's who we are. And liberation, mukti, you've heard the word, mukti means, liberation means being situated in one's spiritual form and being engaged in spiritual activities with all the living entities that are in that place, the spiritual realm, place where we belong. And that's in loving dealings, that's beyond liberation, or beyond reincarnation, excuse me, where the cycle of birth and death is finished, and what do you do there? In your spiritual form, situated in your spiritual form, you engage in loving exchanges of different varieties. The Sanskrit word is rasa, different tastes, this, that, the other, varieties and mixtures and varieties of tastes of loving exchange. And then the description goes on from there. If you want a further description, if you'd like, there's a really fantastic description of Vaikuntha and what's the place like, and what do people do there? That's the place beyond birth and death, beyond reincarnation. It's in, I'll give you the reference if you want to look it up later.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So, the reason why I asked this question, just to get your perspective, was because I've done meditations. Recently I did a Vipassana, heard of Vipassana?
Oh, yeah.
So I did Vipassana, and maybe I did the 10-day, and maybe in day 6, I don't know, I remember exactly what I think about it. I had an insight that said, no more deja vu, everything new.
Mm.
There's more to the story, because when I came home, something else happened where I completed that mission, and I know deja vu is tied to carnations.
Mm.
So if you had a previous life, and you come in that, if you do have these lives,
Mm-hmm.
deja vu is remembering stuff from life.
Yes.
So the short of it is I'm saying I'm done.
Congratulations.
That's my
Well, to remember, let me just comment, to remember some impression that's stored in your photo file of I was, and this was my experience when I was, and then boop, it appears on your screen. That's not the same as everything's done.
Well, I say done, but I'm saying for me, that makes sense as to how my life is going, based on the thing that comes in. A lot of things just sort of make sense.
Okay. That's not the term, my comment is, that's not the termination of reincarnation. Termination of reincarnation is where you, I don't need to say anything. You have a spirit, you are spirit soul, not the body. And there's the mind, you're not the mind. You're the eternal soul. The spirit, this eternal soul not just exists as a soul, but has spiritual form and spiritual activity and spiritual name and spiritual qualities and spiritual everything. being situated in that awareness of self with others in a similar situation in the spiritual realm, engaging in loving activities. That's when the job is done, when the cycle of birth and death is finished. Okay. Others, you're a talkative one. You probably have something to say. She does, I know. And then,
If you want, you have a question. So I was thinking about in terms of, because we started the reincarnation thing. So I started thinking about like the whole karmic cycle. So the goal of spirituality, especially here, I hear that is to kind of get rid of the karmic cycle, right?
that's the
Go
negative.
back to Godhead.
That's the negative. That's the positive.
Yeah. So I know that's the goal, but also it's very hard,
Okay.
right? So I feel like the first step for me is to be in the mode of goodness, try to be at the most sattvic level I can be, and then slowly try to move from there to the mode of transcendence.
Okay.
So,
I want to make a comment. Make sure you know what the destination is.
yes.
If you got a GPS, you go through the mode of goodness space, but what's the destination, please? Doesn't mean that, like, you know, what's beyond reincarnation, what's beyond birth and death? What is it? If you remember from the meet a monk, I asked Mom and Dad from Sunday school, what's it like there? That was just heaven, not the kingdom of God, because there's a distinction. Well, what's it like there? What do people do? What's the travel advertisement? No answer. What to speak of? So, but there is an answer. And how do it just, anyway, it's not in our capacity, present capacity of mind, limited and crippled, to understand what's beyond. But one can understand what's beyond through sound vibration from beyond. And one can at least cognitively understand it and then directly experience it. So make sure you got the destination put in your GPS system, please.
So I just had a follow-up question. Is it required to think about what's beyond? Because for me, I feel like personally, just the suffering here is sufficient to think about, I just don't want to be here. I don't even think about what's beyond. I'm like,
Well,
enough.
so liberation, back to this definition of mukti, or liberation, it's not negation. Supposing you obliterate the unwanted, then what? What's on the other side of the unwanted? What's wanted? It's not the dreaming, closing your eyes and imagining something. It's, you know, experiencing. It's not simple. Give a practice. Somebody's ill. They got a fever. And, you know, it's not like you have to dream about what being well is by, I no longer have the fever. Well, what's the experience of wellness? I'll give a practical example. Same principle, practical example. Once upon a time, I had a meniscus tear. The cartilage in my knee ripped. And my knee swelled, like, you know, because of the reaction to my cartilage being ripped. And because my knee swelled, my leg didn't move normally. Because my leg didn't move normally, my lower extremity of my right leg started to puff up. When it started to puff up, it formed a blood clot. Embolism, we got a nice name for it. And then something happened and the embolism went to my lung. And I couldn't breathe. You know, and I couldn't breathe. So, you know, went to a doctor and they did some blood thinners and so I find out with the MRI, it wasn't, sir, you don't need surgery. you need, maybe we get in there and clean up the thing, but where the rip is, it's not impeding movement. You have to replace, you have to build a muscle structure. You need physical therapy. So I'm giving you a little bit of a long story. So I went to the physical therapist, and they looked at the MRI and they said, okay, we have some exercises for you, but before we give you the exercises, we want to know what your GPS said. They didn't say it that way. They said, what do you want from this? What's your goal? And I gave a quick one. I want to be able to walk up and down the stairs, not like an old man. Okay, great, wrote it down. What else? And then they asked, after 2 or 3 times, they realized it's an important part of therapy, this too. So I said, I plan to go to India. She said, oh, my friend going to India. Where are you going to India? It's like, social. She said, Vrindavan. Oh, where's Vrindavan? It's near Delhi. Oh, where's it? Then what are you going to do when you're in Vrindavan? I said, I want to go around Govardhan Hill. Some of you know what Govardhan Hill is. It's coming up in our Vaishnava calendar. We're observing Govardhan Puja. It's like a very wonderful festival. I said, okay. So then she got it on her notebook. It was for me, it wasn't for her notebook. And then I was doing 15 of those and 20 of those and 30 of those. And I found when the purpose was clear, it was far more effective. And when the purpose wasn't clear, just 30 of those and 20 of those, it wasn't as effective. It probably was doing something, but it wasn't as effective. So be mindful of what the objective is. What's the purpose of life? What's the purpose of yoga? It's not just cessation of a misery. I mean, that's okay. That's nice. Then it'll come back again. So then, what's the goal? It's not just cessation of misery, or material existence, or no more birth and death. What's on the other side of no more birth and death? That was his question. When reincarnation finishes, what is it? It's not dreaming, it's just having a destination, a purpose. And making that connection as you're going along step by step, even you're not there, it's okay. Know where you're going. What's life all about? So yoga requires that purpose and stay focused on the purpose while you're doing the asanas or the pranayama or the mantras or the this and do that. What's the purpose? The why behind the what and the how. In the back, somebody was, okay, good.
I feel it. How do you practice detachment without becoming passive or uncaring?
How do you help yourself or how do you help other people?
Yourself. How do you practice detachment yourself?
Detachment.
Yep. How do you practice detachment without becoming passive or uncaring?
Oh. Same answer. I mean, in other words, to say the same answer. If I know who I am, and I have an idea of who or what the Supreme is, and I want to be connected with the Supreme, then I can be aware of the pain in my right knee and the swelling that's around the pain in the right knee. I can be aware of the stuff, and then other persons that are causing me pain and misery. The negative and positive. But when someone is clear of who they are, it's something that I like Mother Teresa, what she said about this. When you know who you are and what you are, nothing can touch you. You're not careless, you're not callous, you're not cavalier, you're not dismissive. You're tuned in to doing what, in her case, serving people. By serving the Supreme. That's who she was, that's what she did. And some persons were appreciating her, and some persons were poo-pooing her. And, you know, it didn't roll off her back, because she knew who she was and who she was serving. If you have that clarity, so seek that clarity. And when that clarity is there, when the connection is there,
So starting with knowing yourself.
then, yes, know yourself. Okay, I'm looking at the clock. And the clock says, ding, 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 ding. We're over. And here's our next speaker. You ready? Huh? Oh, okay. It's exactly what it says on the screen. The screen just disappeared. Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again next week.
Maybe before.
It is said that gratitude is the seed of love. Many of you have heard me say this many times. I learned it from my parents. So let's the best way to express gratitude is to live by the teachings that is being taught. But also we can express gratitude by the following manner. So I invite you all to raise up. We're going to try and do a cosmic hug. Who here has done a cosmic hug before?
This one?
Yeah, so we're going to chant the Mahamantra all in unison 3 times, as loud as we can. And if you are willing to, you can also raise your hands and close your eyes. This is to thank Maharaj for his sacrifice and service and being here and helping us understand these important concepts and providing mentorship and guidance. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much, Maharaj. Maharaj is twice my age in terms of the body, but twice my energy also. Thank you everyone for joining us. We have a concluding kirtan to be led by Vedaji and Nityanand Prabhu.